Roll call, please.
Right. Gordon Eggleton.
Here.
Gary Ellingson.
Here.
Chester Norikis.
Here.
Roger Sprague.
Here.
Henry Quant.
Here.
Wes Ryan is absent, and Mayor Dick Anderson.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance. United States of America. For which you say. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Before we get started, I would like to let folks know that just prior to this meeting, we had all the nonprofits in where we were able to distribute checks to them from this current budget, $46,000. And forgive me, I can't remember the number of nonprofits that received checks. But the majority of them are either food or services to citizens, youth primarily, and food banks, but services to Lincoln City citizens. And it was an honor for certainly this council to distribute those checks, and something we do every year as long as the citizens continue to approve how we handle and budget the public dollars. But it does come back to us because these are the agencies that actually serve those in the most need in and within Lincoln City. So wanted to let you know that was done. We were oversubscribed by some, I think it's $66,000 and had to pare it back to $46,000. So again, it gives you an idea. With that, we have comments, public comments, and this is an opportunity for members of the audience to bring to the council's attention any item not listed on the agenda for public hearing or public comment. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per citizen. The city recorder will use the light system. Speakers may not yield their time to others, and as a general rule, this is not a time for exchange of questions. At the conclusion of this agenda item, any councilor may discuss or raise questions regarding an item that a citizen brought forth. With that, I see that nobody actually signed up, but this would be a time if there's anyone in the room who wishes to come before council to make a comment. Well, that's got to be a first. It is. We've got another one at the end of the agenda, if you're so interested. We'll move on then to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, these items are considered routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any councilor may request that an item be removed for separate discussion and action. The consent agenda consists of number 1, minutes of meeting August 8, 2013. Number 2, addition of hearing benefit to American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees and non-represented insurance plans. Number 3, acceptance of offer to purchase the city property located at 1904 Northeast Fleet. At this point, I'd like to remove items 2 and 3 for discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Please remove item 1 for discussion.
Okay. That kind of takes care of the consent items. Why don't you, Roger, if you don't mind, number 1, and your issue with the minutes of the meeting?
That's the minutes of the meeting, and then in the area there in the VRD section, when we were talking about liability insurance, it's just a small change, but I think it says that Councilor Sprague recommended a requirement of $500,000 in liability. That should read probably a minimum of $500,000.
Okay.
Other than that, it's fine.
So with that correction,
I would move, with that correction, that we adopt the minutes of that meeting on the 8th.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Thank you. Number 2 is the addition of hearing benefit to American Federation of State. This is an add to. Mr. Hucker, or could you perhaps talk to us a little bit about this request?
Well, we've been experiencing some hearing loss on the part of our employees. Some of that is work-related. We do have a fairly aggressive safety program and hearing protection, but we do test our field workers and our police officers, and we see failures. And some of that, presumably, is work-related, and it goes through an extensive workers' compensation process, which is costly to us. It's difficult for the employee. And on top of that, in addition to the work-related hearing losses, we find other types of hearing losses that people get. Probably wouldn't be surprised if some of our youth experience hearing loss from various types of technology that they use, properly or improperly. So we priced, when CIS came out with their new plans, they offered a hearing plan that is very, very affordable. And we can't tell you exactly what the net would be because of the reduction in workers' comp claims that we would get. It could be an offset. It could be a money savings to us, or it could be some small cost to us. The memo details the cost. It's very, very small, and we would like to offer it to our ASME represented employees and non-represented employees, with them participating in the same rate that they participate in medical insurance. So with that, maybe I can answer some questions.
So the last statement, at the same rate, that means a deduction?
Same percentage.
A percentage of their premium paid.
Right.
Is that, okay, that,
yes.
I guess that was not clear to me, so that's helpful. Thank you.
Heather, did I get this correct? Do you?
I'm sorry.
Actually,
yeah, I didn't see Heather in the audience, so otherwise I would have.
And I should have just brought her up here. If there's more questions, I'm going to do that.
Oh, okay. Other questions from council? I guess the only other question I would have is, one, this seems like a benefit, addition to the insurance package. You know, why now and not when we renegotiate the contract?
Well, because we have to notify CIS of what plans we're going to participate in. And that doesn't occur at the same time that we have negotiations.
Gotcha. Okay. Other questions? Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Before you vote on that, I might just say that assuming without any savings in workers' comp, our additional cost would be about $2,100 a year. I think that's correct. If we get an offset to workers' comp, which we would certainly hope to get, it would be less than that. So we're not talking about a major expenditure here.
Right.
Motion to approve. Seconded.
So there's a motion with a second. All those in favor say, or roll call. Okay. Could we do a roll call, please?
Sure. Ellingson,
Yes.
Norikis,
Yes.
Sprague,
Yes.
Quant,
Yes.
Eggleton, and Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Then the next item was we've had an offer on the city property located at 1904 Northeast Lee. Mr. Hucker.
I was authorized by previous council action to accept a sale and an offer to purchase of the amount of the appraisal, and that was $135,000. We received an offer for $125,000, felt it was close enough, would like to accept that offer conditional on us reviewing some financial information that would cause us to believe that the buyer can finance this. Not a guarantee, but enough information to suggest that the buyer probably can obtain financing.
And again, for council, the reason it's coming forth is because we had authorized at the 135, and this being a lower price. That's where, again, need that authorization to move ahead and allow the city manager to continue to negotiate with the transaction. Okay. Then could I entertain any other questions or clarification on that issue? I'd entertain or does that have to be a motion to, with conditions, accept the 125? I'm looking at the city attorney.
Well, I think you could go ahead and authorize acceptance of the offer, or you could authorize the city manager to accept offers down to 125 and let him
work with it.
work with that.
Okay. Entertain a motion to authorize the city manager to work with an offer at 125 and accept offers down to the 125 price, 125,000 price. And
So moved.
okay.
Rats.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could we do a roll call, please?
Norikis,
Yes.
Sprague,
Yes.
Quant,
Yes.
Eggleton, Ellingson,
Yes.
and Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. All right, special order of business. We have a Driftwood Library report this evening.
We'll need the projector turned on. I can see a silhouette in there. Yep.
Thumbs went up.
Okay. Well, as you know, and for anyone at home, my name is Kirsten Brodbeck-Kenny. I'm the director at Driftwood Public Library. And I wanted to give you a little bit of an update about how things are going at the library. As you probably recall, it's been a little over a year now since the library had some restructuring. We left the Coastal Resource Sharing Network and joined in the Ocean Books Network with with Newport Public Library and with Tillamook County Libraries. And we're just now finally getting some really good numbers on how things are going. So I wanted to come and share those with you. I'm looking at, one of the things that we're looking at is circulation. And if you don't know, circulation is kind of like sales figures. It tells us how many items are being checked out, how often, how many items are being renewed, things of that nature. It doesn't tell the whole story about how successful a library is, but it does say a lot about whether we're picking materials that are useful and popular in the community, whether people are actually coming in and using the materials that we're spending money on, and things of that nature. So, to give you an idea of how things are going at Driftwood, we have remained very steady in our circulation over the past year. In April 2012, our circulation was 15,536. This past April 2013, it was 15,468, which is basically a negligible change. It went down less than half of a percentage. And what we're seeing across the board is that it's holding very steady. It's going up a little bit one month and down a little bit the next month, but in comparison to prior to the restructuring, it's remained pretty much the same, which is good because a lot of libraries nationwide are seeing a drop in circulation. Oftentimes people are still coming to the library, but they don't seem to be checking out as many materials. So what we're seeing is that people are still making use of the library. What we would like to see, though, is an increase in circulation, because not only does that tell us that we're doing a good job, but it also has some potential for financial impact for this library in particular. We're part of the Lincoln County Library District, which means that in exchange for serving county residents as opposed to just city residents at the library, we get a reimbursement from the library district. And part of that reimbursement is calculated based on the number of county residents that we're circulating materials to. So one of the things we look at is, are county residents coming to the library? Are they making use of the library? And of course, if we can get those circulation numbers up, that's a very, very good thing for us. It's particularly of interest right now because with the annexation of the Rhodes End area, those library card holders who previously lived in Rhodes End were considered county patrons, and now they're city patrons, so we're not able to count any circulations from that area in our overall county circulation any longer. I don't foresee a very great impact from that because there are only about 80 card holders in the Rhodes End area, but it is something that we want to be paying attention to. So I thought it might be interesting for me to demonstrate what items are circulating in the library. A lot of times people tell me, oh, well, nobody checks out books anymore. But as you can see from this chart, we have books still make up the vast majority of the items that circulate. Second is DVDs and Blu-ray. What's particularly interesting about this is these are circulation figures from July of this year. And you'll see that the circulation for DVDs is 3,891. What's kind of funny about that is that's about as many DVDs as we own. And it basically turns out that almost every DVD we own gets checked out at least once a month. So those are pretty interesting numbers there. Following DVDs in popularity are books on CD. Large print, which are books that are printed in larger print for folks who have vision issues. And then ebooks are kind of creeping up there. We had about 456 circulations of ebooks in July. And that's followed by CDs, magazines, and then various other kits and things like that we circulate. So books still are a very strong part of our of the services that we provide. This chart shows circulation by patron type. The big blue section there is city residents. Following that are county residents with the big purple wedge there. Children who live in the city, then children who live outside of the city, and then outreach patrons. And outreach patrons are those patrons that, for whatever reason, usually due to physical disability, they can't come to the library. So Ron Sears, our outreach coordinator, will go out and actually bring them materials. And he visits usually between 50 and 60 individuals every month, plus trips to Dorchester and to many of the other sort of residential programs in the area. So we are seeing quite a bit of circulation to those patrons. And then the final one is temporary patrons. And these are people, this is a service we provide where someone who's here for a short period can get a temporary card. It's only good for 30 days, and that allows them to check out 2 items at a time. So that's basically a service that we provide for people who are here on an extended vacation but don't qualify for residence in the city. So, of course, now we're looking at how do we increase the circulation. Right now, things that we have done recently are highlighting new items, creating new staff displays and things like that. We have a staff picks display now, which has been surprisingly popular. People actually seem to take our advice on what they should read, which is a little bit frightening sometimes. But we've also been tying it in with movies at the Bijou, and then doing themed displays, beach reads, road trip reads, stuff like that. We've increased some of our item limits. Most notably, we used to only allow people to check out 6 DVDs at a time. We recently raised that to 8, so someone can check out 8 DVDs in one go. We're also tying in our library materials with events, and we're working on expanding some of our advertising and getting in touch with populations we previously hadn't been in contact with. We're using Facebook an awful lot and making use of some other social media, and we're seeing some real gains from that, I think, at least in awareness of the library. We would really like to look into increasing outreach to library district patrons, making sure that people who live in Otis, people who live in the North County area know that they can come to us and get a card with us, especially children. Looking at our circulation numbers, I saw that children in the county area seem to be falling a little bit behind, so I want to make sure that we get them cards, and also if there are ways that we can help parents find ways of getting carpooling or getting the kids into the library after school, I think that would be a really good idea. Another program we're looking at is expanding our outreach to outside of the city limits. Currently, we have one part-time person, Ron, who goes out in his van and he visits all of these homebound patrons, and expanding that much more than we already have is a pretty big time commitment. So what we're looking at instead is that we've learned we can, the Postal Service provides free mailing of materials to the blind and physically handicapped. So if we can get people certified as qualifying for this program, we can then hopefully start mailing them items, every other week, once a month, and get that expanded beyond just where we can drive in the van in the morning. We want to, of course, continue to strengthen our partnerships with the local schools. And we're hoping to get in touch with some of the organizations in the area that welcome new residents, because one of the things we would love to do is actually be able to say, okay, this is what you need, this is how you get a library card, it's not that hard. Come on in, we'll get you set up. As part of our partnership with Tillamook and Newport, we are engaging in resource sharing, and this means that our library cards are honored in Newport and Tillamook County, and we, of course, honor Tillamook County and Newport cards. And you can also request materials to be sent. If someone in Tillamook wants a book that we have here, they can request that and have that sent up there. What we found is that we are actually a net lender, which means right now we're lending out a few more items to other places than we are borrowing in return. It's not a terribly huge deficit. It's not like we have any libraries that are borrowing way more than they send out. But it does speak to the health of our collection, that we actually have the smallest collection of these 3 library systems, but we're the ones who are sending out the most items. And I should interject, I think some of that's geographical. I think that some of it's the way that the computer program, it'll look and see which library is closest to you that has the book. So, of course, if someone in Newport requests an item, the computer program will check Driftwood before it checks a library farther north. And I think some of that's happening vice versa as well. So I think some of the reason that we're a net lender is just sort of the vagaries of geography. But we are working with Newport and with Tillamook to try to make sure that we're purchasing some materials cooperatively. So if we know that Newport is buying a certain series and it's, middling popular but not super popular, we can say, okay, we don't have to buy a copy of that newest book in that series. Newport's going to get that, and then there are other series that maybe we collect rather than they do. Children's summer reading went off really well this year. We had 493 children and teens sign up. 120 children met their goal of reading for 15 hours to earn T-shirts. And 15 students earned medals for reading 60 or more hours this summer. Our family night programs were fantastic this year. We had one program where we definitely broke 200 people. That was the wildlife safari, so there were live lizards and snakes and things like that. But we were averaging over 100 attendees every Wednesday night all summer.
Wow.
All of those programs are funded by the Friends of Driftwood Public Library, and also by the Lincoln County Library District applied for and won a Ready to Read grant from the state of Oregon. So all of that is either with grant funding or with donated funds. The Ready for Read grant and the Friends also funded our Books for Babies program, which is intended for, very young children, infants and toddlers. When their parents bring them in to sign up for summer reading, they can get a free board book, and then the parents can earn more board books for their kids by reading to them. One of the things that lots of studies have shown is that having books around and being read to are probably the two biggest predictors of whether children will grow up to be readers and keep up academically. So a program like this helps make sure that those books are there and available, and having kids have books of their own to keep. Teen summer reading, that's for kids 7th grade and older. 50 teens met their reading goal this summer, and they have to read for 20 hours. Or they can also do a combination of reading and volunteering for the library to earn those T-shirts. And we had a pretty good attendance, about 10 to 25 kids per week for our teen time programs. And these were craft programs, educational programs. They came and learned about things like geocaching or how to identify the rocks that you find on the beach, or they did arts and crafts. And all of those materials and things like that were donated by local businesses, and local businesses also donated prizes for the teen program. Adult summer reading, we had about 200 adults sign up this year. 35 came to our kickoff celebration with author Robert Dugoni, and they earned small prizes, yo-yos and things like that, and then also opportunities to win donated prizes from local businesses. And our big event at the end of the summer is that we have author Terry Brooks coming on September 24th, and he is a best-selling fantasy author. He wrote The Sword of Shannara in the late 70s and has been writing books in that series ever since. And we've got a lot of excitement about his appearance, so we're pretty excited about that. If folks are interested in that, we are asking that people get tickets. They're free, but we do want to have a sense of how many people we can expect to have. So if you want to make sure that you get a seat, you should come and give us a call or send us an email, and we'll get you hooked up. And I wanted to talk a little bit about volunteerism at the library. We had 83 volunteers donate 4,364 hours in 2012. In addition to that, 23 Friends of Driftwood Library donated 2,145 hours running the bookstore. And volunteers do so many things for us. They shelve items, they pull the items. You know, all those 2,000 books that we sent out to Newport and Tillamook, we have volunteers who come in every day and get the list and pull the ones that have been requested and get them ready to be sent out. They cover and label the new books and repair and clean tired or damaged items as well. The income from the Friends of the Library brought us $11,547 last year. In addition to that, 1,658 items were repaired by volunteers last year. And even conservatively, if you say, okay, each item cost us $10 or something like that, that's, well, like $16,000. That's a huge amount of money that could have been spent on replacing items that instead they cleaned up, recovered, glued the pages back in, whatever needed to be done. And also, as you probably have already been kind of doing the math, if we had to pay somebody to do all of the things that the volunteers do, that would be the equivalent of about two full-time positions. So they do a huge amount of work for us, and I'm really grateful. And at this point, I would like to invite Deirdre Reynolds as our volunteer coordinator, and she has a visual demonstration for you of the volunteers at Driftwood Library.
Still need this?
Nope, that's all set.
What you see before you is one of Lincoln City's great natural resources. We, with over 100 volunteers between the volunteer and the Friends of the Library, we have one of these flags for each of these people at the volunteer party this year. We had each one of them make one to present to you. So this is just a visual of how much impact we do have through the volunteer program. They are a great group of people, and also I ask all the volunteers, all that I can remember to ask, why they volunteered at the library, and invariably they always say that they love the library and they also want to give back to the community. So and through the volunteers, it isn't just the equivalent of two full-time people. It's a lot more than that, because the talent we have among these people are amazing, that you could not get in two individual people. So, and we have longevity. We have right now we have 12 volunteers who have been there from 10 to 20 years. 1 year, a few years ago, I had 3 who had volunteered for 25 years, but we're down to 20 years now. So, and most of the others are between 5 and 10 years too. So we have a good new crop each year, and some of these tonight are part of the new crop, and part have been here for quite some time. This. Good job. And this summer we had a teen apprentice. A teen apprentice is what we do occasionally when we have a superior person. And she has spent the summer doing things to learn about what makes the library tick. And so she's learned to do all the jobs that volunteers do. She's gone to the board, which of course all you know that boards are an important part of functioning anything. And she's sat with the mender to see about mending books and mending DVDs. And Pat here is one of the DVD menders. And so our flag bearers are Mick McLean, Carrie Ganchow, Tammy Geiser, Justin Herndon, Pat Callan, Carrie Ganchow, and what? Wrong one, Jenny. Well, I did pretty well. And Darlene Steffens, who does all my all the computer work and statistics and that kinds of stuff, and does all my records and so on, which helps me a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's
Thank you,
great.
volunteers.
What a great visual. Thank you. Yeah.
And before Deirdre and I head back to our seats, do you have any questions for either one of us about the library or about the volunteer program?
Yes, I'm sure there'll be some questions. Council?
Well, I don't have any questions, Madam Director, but I'd like to thank you for the update. It's gratifying that you have 50 teenagers involved in reading and wanting to spend time in the library. It's good to hear good news about teenagers for me. Grateful to the volunteers, an astonishing number of volunteers, an astonishing number of hours, and I am grateful for that. Thankful for that migration computer program worked as smoothly as it did, given the potential for snags and hang-ups.
I'm also grateful for that.
Also, I'm glad to see that we're complementing Dolly Parton's program in terms of giving away books to preschoolers. Yes. That's a very good move. Thank you for all of that.
Good highlights. Councilor?
I noticed that you said you had tapes, the books on tape.
Yes.
Are these the old 8-track tapes, or?
We do still, most of our books are on CD, but we do actually still have a few books on cassette tape. We're not buying more of those, I'm sorry to say.
Are you taking donations?
Actually, no, those ones we do say, the friends would love to have them for resale, because there are still some people who would like to have those. So if you have those, you're welcome to donate them to the Friends book sale, but we don't add them to collection any longer.
I have a sneaking suspicion you'll get some more.
You're going to have to finally give up that 8-track player, are you, Counselor?
I have more room in the drawer that's needed, so.
Kristen, a couple of thoughts, and thank you, Chester, for those observations of the library and the volunteers. I was encouraged by the challenge that you're giving yourselves, the penetration of the school-age kids, and not just those in the city, but in our county. Is there a program, and I ask it without even knowing, of actually going to the schools and introducing the library at the physical school? And I say that because we've got really all 3 principals now are not brand new. 2 of them are, but new to the community, and I'm not sure they're as connected as they could be to the library, and would like to get the kids connected, I guess.
We've had some, mostly with the lower grades. Tina Nelson, our our youth services coordinator, goes and makes visits to the lower grades, the elementary school and the Head Start. But to be honest, we could do more in terms of making sure that we're actually getting out to Taft High and partnering more strongly and making sure that we actually visit the classrooms and say, this is what the library has to offer. So that's something that is a focus for us in the coming year.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm pleased that you also mentioned Head Start, just because I do also consider them to be a key component to our school system.
As do we.
The other note, it was fun going through your slides, and I've just got to say that I had the privilege of going to a family night at the library this summer, and happened to be the one that was on the picture, and it was just a hoot.
It's a lot of energy. It's kind of great.
I encourage adults to sit back in the back row because the kids are all up front, and it was kind of fun. I had the experience of my granddaughter not wanting to get up and participate, and when asked why, she happened to mention because the mayor was here. The mayor was in the audience. But it was a fun, and it looked like just a great family outing, and I enjoyed it. Could you summarize for us what we might expect for the next year in the library?
Well,
3 things, or top 2 or something
well,
really hitting?
We are definitely laying the groundwork for the expansion of the outreach program.
Okay.
So that will be coming out. We are also, the other big program that I didn't really talk about here is that we're going to be offering some computer classes. We recently were able to purchase several laptops that we can set up as a portable lab and have set up in one of our meeting rooms. And our reference librarian, Morgan Soul, will be teaching some basic computer classes and starting to teach some classes in online research and things of that nature, introducing people to some of the online resources that we have available. So it's big and it's exciting for us because we haven't been able to offer that in the past. And then this coming year is our 20th Legacy Author Series. So we haven't finished lining up our authors yet, but we are looking forward to a pretty big celebration in January as we celebrate 20 years of Oregon authors here on the coast. So we're very much looking forward to that.
Great. That helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you again. If you would pass on, certainly to the volunteers, because this council appreciates and understands the value of volunteers, and not that others don't, but it does reflect through, and very sensitive to it.
I would also like to mention that we have a really excellent staff at the library, thanks to all the city's work and our staff work and so on. We compiled a really good group.
It's good to hear. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it looks like we're going to continue with library board appointments. We have, and I notice the appointments are in the audience, and what we might do is take care of our business and then see if they want to come forward, if that's all right, after you make the appropriate decisions, if that's okay. We have an appointment. There's a position on the library board for the Taft High student, or for a Taft High student. And we have in our packets both Councilor Norikis and Councilor Ellingson interviewed Natalie, where am I looking? Natalie Joy, and have made a recommendation to the council. Anything you two gentlemen would like to contribute prior to motion?
Well, I'd just like to say I was very happy that we had a student who was willing to serve on the board and interested in serving on the board. She has a background indicating an interest in various aspects of life, and I'm happy to have her on the board.
If I'm not mistaken, this is her second year, second term?
Second term.
Great. Okay. Gentlemen, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the recommendations of Councilor Norikis and Councilor Ellingson to appoint Natalie Joy to the position of high school student to the library board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Great. Thank you. And if we could go to the next appointment for the same library board, Carolyn Ganshaw, and again, Councilor Norikis and Ellingson did the interviewing and are making recommendations to approve Carolyn for another term. Any comments?
I'm grateful to Carolyn for being willing to step up and serve another term. She's been chairing the meetings for the past, I'm not sure how many years, but a number of years. And I appreciate her energy and I appreciate her perseverance.
I'd entertain a motion.
So move to approve.
All right. We have a motion to approve Carolyn Ganshaw back to the library board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Hearing none. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, was there a second on that?
Oh, I'll second that.
There is now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wondered about
Natalie and Carolyn, would you guys mind coming forward just so you can come together? That way.
She's great.
Right.
She comes, she's prepared.
Sit down. Thank you.
She always comes. She's prepared when she comes.
Good.
She's good.
Good stuff. Well, that's what I certainly gathered, and I appreciate it. And all the words that Councilor Norikis and Councilor Ellingson have said, I'm sure are true. Actually, I wanted to get you up here, one, so the public can see you, not just us.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would think it would be appropriate that each of them tell us who they are so we know for sure who they are.
You know, even though I indicated the high school.
I know that. I just thought that was appropriate.
Do you all kind of?
Yeah.
You aren't the high school student then?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
No.
about that.
Yeah.
In fact, I won't even go back to my
Yeah.
high school unions
No.
anymore.
So, Carolyn, why don't you tell us who you are?
I'm Carrie Ganshaw. That's
You,
I'm sorry.
there you go.
Been fulfilling a vacated term, and I've been chair at least for the last 2 years, and I appreciate Chester being there and asking really good questions. He really reads everything. See? And he comes prepared. So, and this is Natalie Joy. Natalie?
I'm Natalie Joy, and I'm a Taft High student. I've been serving on the board since my freshman year, and I'm going into my junior year. I've loved my time, and I'm really grateful to be serving my community, and I thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I really enjoy myself.
Well, that's great, and thank you for serving, because not, as you probably learned, not everybody does or is capable, and so we who can need to. So thank you very much for coming forth and raising your hand.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you both.
I'd like to put in a word, since the mayor said that he enjoyed one of the family nights. Some people don't know about our solstice program. And that was one of the things that attracted me to the library years ago when we moved here. It's a wonderful experience of sort of small town, hometown, really excellent talent entertaining the rest of the town. Please keep a thought for that. It comes in late December with the solstice, when we're all drowning in the rain, and a little bit of joy, and try and join us.
Great. Good advertisement. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move to city manager and city attorney reports.
I generally make up this agenda, and I'm not going to follow the library anymore. That is just too hard of an act to follow. That's tough. Great job, guys. Friday, we received some detailed preliminary engineering on sewering the lake, putting a backbone system around the lake, a low-pressure system rather than a gravity system, from E1, the pump manufacturer, who has engineers on staff that do designs. They actually took each segment of the entire 500 and some accounts around the lake and determined what pipe size needed to be serving that neighborhood, segment by segment by segment, a couple hundred or 100 and some segments, and gave us the number of feet of 2-inch pipe and 3-inch pipe and valves, and did come up with the fact that we would need one fairly small lift station in addition to what we have for about $250,000. They gave us all the distances, the valves, the takeoffs, the basic preliminary engineering. What we don't have tonight is the price of each of those segments. We need to do a little bit of work here. They were really not in a position to know what the local market is for construction prices on this. We can have you a fairly decent estimate by the next meeting. There's been a lot of work done so far. I'm just going to stand by for now until I'm corrected my $5 million estimate. I still think that that's achievable. I'm going to pass out just a map and that shows the different segments. Unfortunately, they did include the Lake Drive LID, and we'll have to take that out because that's already a settled issue. And there's also a pretty nice article. It's not done by the pump manufacturer. It's a pretty nice article about this kind of systems. I'm increasingly optimistic that this is achievable. Hope to have better cost numbers at the next meeting or before. And at that point, if the cost is reasonable, then we have to look and say, how could this be funded? If the funding can be worked out, then I think we've got some solutions. Anyway, I'm going to pass out something for you to take along with you.
And again, for reminding the public, this discussion is really picked up primarily because of the opportunities of technology and the pressurized systems that exist now to handle sewage. And actually, it's what we learned from dealing with the Lakeside LID that will incorporate this pump. Because prior to this, though sewering the lake's always been an objective, it was a very faint one of reality because of the cost. And as Mr. Huckers indicated, our suspicion is the cost of actually sewering the lake under a pressurized system has greatly reduced. So it seems to be something to explore in more detail now as a result. Does that seem to be fair?
Yeah, yes. Well, I apologize for not having cost numbers to you tonight, but the information we received was pretty valuable. I can send you the spreadsheet, but it's just page after page of segment after segment of velocities and gallons per minute and all those calculations that mean a lot to an engineer, but they're pretty hard for us to make a lot of sense out of. But anyway, a lot of work's been done. We'll get you some better numbers here soon. I'm still optimistic of $5 million to do the whole public part of the system, the backbone of the system. With that, there's nothing more that I can offer tonight, unfortunately. I wish I could.
I wonder if you could bring up the discussion of, the village offer.
Oh, yeah, I've got 3 or 4 more other
okay.
items.
On that topic.
On the
Right.
sewering.
I didn't know if you were
okay, yeah.
on any questions on sewer? Okay. Thank you.
I received a communication in the form of what I consider to be a preliminary draft offer on the villages in the form of a letter of intent to purchase the entire villages except for the knoll. And it's not a formal offer, but it is to the point where I need some guidance, staff needs some guidance from council on how to approach that type of inquiry, that type of offer. My feeling is that the villages is such an important parcel for our future that there's a fair amount of planning that has to be done. And also, I feel that if the city owned the parcel and sold phases or pods of the villages over time, it would be the best outcome rather than to liquidate the entire parcel at once. I think that the private market can absorb it better that way. I think that the builders and developers are going to like it that way for manageable pieces being put out on the market. So I'm looking for some direction. Council knows a little bit more about the information I have received. I passed that along to you. I'm looking for some general guidance from council on how to deal with these types of inquiries or offers or intentions.
Mr. Rucker, I guess for me, I think this was a great purchase by the city, very timely and very prudent on our part. I also see it as an economic development engine for the city, one of the few big things we could really do to add assessed value to this city and county, quite frankly. I remind the council and the public that this property has been in developable stage for over 17 years. And so when people talk to me about the government shouldn't be in this business, they should act like private sector, I remind them that, we can't stand another 17 years of non-development by the private sector on this piece of property. So, we're in a better position, city, I think, as you've indicated, to sell off pods or smaller pieces, of which, I would be encouraged as we shape it with a vision for that overall development. So I wouldn't be interested, and my direction to you would be not to be entertaining offers on the whole villages, but that's just me. Other councilors' thoughts?
No, I have a tendency to agree with Mayor. I'm looking at a long-term investment here and over a period of time, and I say I can't see selling the whole thing just to flip it. Doesn't make any sense. In the long run, I think we require more money with the tax assessment and things like this. And I know how it's like selling a business or something else like this, and you get plenty of people that come in and kick tires and take up your time and never come back and do anything or make ridiculous offers. And I think we'd be tying up city staff and time looking at someone trying to buy the whole project for, just to flip it. I don't think that's a worthy cause.
Yeah. Other councilors' comments, thoughts?
The mayor speaks my mind.
So,
Mr. Mayor.
yeah.
And I hate to put an exception in and then create the, what we're talking about is an offer that would not allow us to maximize what the return eventually will be by having a program developed with, public interface, public comment that's driven by the council with the city manager so that we could then put the property up for sale. Right now, we haven't determined what a reasonable rate of return would be for the property. And so, while I'm agreeing with your statement, there could be that one person out there that would give us a maximum rate of return. But until we determine some guidelines for what that is, and then put our estimates into that, and then make a kind of a sell price for things, or some guidelines for that. I don't think we should take any offers prior to that.
Okay.
And
no, I think, and that's what I hear, Mr. Hawker, looking for direction, because I think as Councilor Quant has indicated.
I think even beyond that, and this isn't for tonight, but sometime, and I think Gary raises an issue that needs to be addressed, and at some point, council really needs to adopt what the objectives are of the purchase and sale. Will it be to achieve a profit, if you will, over time, or will it be simply to have an economic development engine that just keeps running over time, and we build value through building and assessed value and population and services and so on? And how much, my intention when we discussed this prior to purchase was that this be lock up the knoll, which is a piece of it, and economic development. I think over the long haul, the city will probably make some bucks on this, but I don't think that, to me, would be the primary objective. To me, the primary objective would be to facilitate private investment and development of that parcel.
Just as a reminder, and it may be that people don't understand that when we own real property, we can only dispose of it in accordance with Oregon statutes. So under 221-725, we have a public hearing, we advertise the terms of the sale or exchange. It's all out there. It's a very public process. It's not a backroom kind of cigar smoking kind of a deal situation. It's all up front. And this is a complicated project with lots of moving parts. And so what I think we all envision is to proceed with discrete phases and request proposals on those phases.
that was the words I was looking for.
That's why we have the city attorney.
Yeah, he gets paid the big bucks. Look at my pay, look at his pay. You get what you pay for. To advertise our terms.
Yep.
And we're just at the very, very beginning of that process. So when it's developed, when we know, everyone will know.
Mr. Mayor, I think my feelings are it has to be looked at, everything has to be looked at better yet before we can make any decisions on anything.
Agreed. Good. Do we need a motion, or is this the direction that?
I think that's plenty. I think at some point we'll want to articulate a paper on this, a council resolution on this.
Okay.
But I think this is plenty for now.
Good. All right. Thank you.
A couple more brief items. We had I guess I'd have to say, a mixed bag with, or maybe some problems with the mushball experience that we recently had, and I would like to get comment from anybody that wants to offer it on the value of this tournament in our peak season. We had, I think, about $1,600 in cleanup expenses. We've had some police expenses. If we continue to offer the facility for that, I would be looking at requiring some fees to cover an additional police officer during the time that they're there, and clean up deposit or expenses, or to cancel it altogether. And I'd like some feedback. I know they book a lot of hotel rooms. It is the peak of the peak season, which kind of concerns me. I'm looking for feedback, and whether I make that decision, I intend to make that decision. Council could certainly make a different one and direct me differently, but I intend to make that decision here in the next month on whether or not we wish to continue to offer this. There are problems that are associated with it. We had one pretty good year. We've had a couple of bad years and problems that came along with it. So I'd like input, and then I'll make a decision, and then if you wish to second-guess me, that's certainly welcome.
And Mr. Rucker, how, for the public, input for hotel community at large to
Sure.
just email you?
Yeah, email me, David H. at lincolncity.org, David H. at lincolncity.org. You let me know.
And I think,
really want to know.
Yeah, for the public, is what this is, or the discussion is actually a mush ball tournament. It's, I don't want to go into explaining mush ball, but it's like a softball, only squishier and bigger, and played like baseball. Tournament comes to town. I'm remembering 11 teams or so, all from out of town, and large number of people, which is all good on the surface. They actually rent the ballpark and utilize it for the weekend. But there has been, in the past, there's been numerous problems with police issues that translate into domestic issues, hotels, thievery, and where I think it was 2 years ago, we had actually asked the organization not to come back. They changed organizations, and as Mr. Hawker indicated, they were really pretty good last year.
Yeah.
This year has been a fallback to problems again. So I think the question is, does a massive number of people coming to town, certainly adding dollars and revenue and buying things in our community, offset the angst and additional expense? And there might be ways, as Mr. Hugger's indicated, to compensate, overcome.
Well, we can
with
mitigate
upfront
some
fees.
of it.
Yeah.
But again, I need to know how important it is to our economy. Are we going to fill up anyway during that time? We certainly have, during that time, a lot of traffic on 101. We probably can't take really any more. I don't know if our hotels are generally filling up or not, how our restaurants are doing. Any input would be valuable.
So this is the time for
This is the time.
public to weigh in.
You may think about this also in terms of, are there amendments you'd like to make to your special events ordinance?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Yes, Councilor?
I haven't thought much about this. Did you give us something to read?
No.
I didn't see it.
No.
Okay.
No, I just brought this up.
I'm not really aware too much of that. I didn't witness anything that's being talked about, but I would like to see the city manager have the latitude where, based on his intimate knowledge of what is going on, to feel like he can.
Well, he does. We've given him that. He's looking for input, and this is to make it a little more public, so he's asking for input. So he has that latitude.
The public part of my statement, when I was saying if he had that latitude, maybe to have it in the special events part of, if Richard is thinking we need to add something extra, to have his support in anything that the special events, passing of special events ordinance, to also have the support of the city manager. But I've had a little bit of business experience over my life, and anytime I run into something where there's a problem, irregardless of whether I'm making money doing it or not, I just don't do it. It's not worth the hassle. And the other part of, if you're aware of problems, is there can be liability issues that come up that make it really, really not worth it, and you just want to avoid that. And so to the end of, I don't know if the tournament is providing extra to the community or how much extra, but if it's going to be a question of liability, I don't think we should be doing it.
Let me stop it at that point, because what I'd like to do is make a decision and have you and have you be able to review it, rather than have me follow your direction. Now, if you'd rather just give me direction tonight, that's fine. Then I'm done.
No, I'd rather you go the route we're going, and that's gather additional information from folks, give them the opportunity to weigh in.
I have the police report, I have the parks report, and I'm just looking for feedback now on the economy and problems that people may or may not have had. I'd like to make a decision, let you know what it is, and then let you second-guess me.
Yep. Okay.
Briefly here, Labor Day, dog swim day. From 4 to 5 p.m., we open the pool for the canines. Cats are not invited. Dogs are. It's a hoot. It really is. And immediately after that, 5 p.m., the pool closes, and it's going to be closed at least until September 15th. The reason for that is the boiler replacement. Now, that's our annual 10-day or 2-week shutdown anyway, but this time we're going to have the new boiler and controls and heat exchangers all installed at that time. It's going to be really tight. And Gail and I have talked about keeping the shower rooms open. It'll be cold water. If those brave souls want to take a cold shower, fine. But there will be no hot water, and the pool will be closed during this period of time. But the exercise facility will be open, and the gymnasium open, locker rooms if you dare.
Yep.
So,
is the closed period longer than usual, or are we still doing it typically? Isn't it a 2-week close?
I don't think it's normally quite 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And I could be wrong. I think it's been more like 10 days.
So a little
part of that is just the time it takes to bring the pool up to temperature, which takes a couple of days. This contractor has the ability to have the use of the boiler room and the boiler for 2 weeks. So there could be add-on time in heating up the water for the pool.
But we'll the results at the end, as
we'll
always.
Keep everybody informed, and we should know a lot more in 2 weeks.
Good.
Because it's just about there.
Great.
And that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
The topic I thought talked about last meeting regarding the Department of Employment, where they have asked for an extension of their time, is my understanding, to the end of the year, to continue to reassess their decision to abandon Lincoln City with their service. Have you heard anything more
I have
official
not
than
another word.
Okay.
I think that it would be nice if our business community had their say about, I mean, I know our business community can do business with state employment without having an office here, but they ought to think about the alternative of having prospective employees go through state employment and have to go to Newport, for example. So it'd be nice if we hear anything positive about the office being located here.
Because we're still in conversation, which to the Department of Employment's, I guess I want to extend a thank you for they've reconsidered and are looking at their data. They have a new director and reassessing their earlier decision. So we'll continue to work on that.
Richard?
Thank you. Mr. Appicello? Nothing.
I have a few items on the agenda, but I do not have anything outside of that.
Okay. Well, why don't we move to that, then? We've got public comment.
Your Honor, under the statutes, 294-160, I believe, whenever we change a fee, we need to provide for the opportunity for public comment. So there is an ordinance on later regarding moving of buildings, and in that ordinance, which is a 1978 ordinance, there are fees established. For example, it's $25 to move a building of one size, $50 to move a building of another size, $75 to move a building of another size, and then there's a $2 per block fee that was in that ordinance, and again, a 1978 ordinance. So there's been about 35 years now elapsed. So in reviewing a recent, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the ordinance itself, but in reviewing the ordinance recently, there was an application to move a building, and it was later withdrawn. Staff asked that we might want to revisit this, and so that's why we have an ordinance that changes the fee to $250, and then in the ordinance itself, but then, as you typically do, authorizes the council to set fees by resolution, and solely to base that resolution and any future amounts on cost recovery. I need you to understand that these applications are routed not just through the Public Works Department and the Planning Department, but also the Building Department and also to me, because there's usually a security instrument or a bond for me to review, and there's a whole list of other items for staff to review. So this is the opportunity for the public to come forward and comment.
Great. Let me then call for anyone who may have signed up for comment on this topic. We have audience, but certainly no one, I guess, that wants to talk about fees for moving buildings. So do we, something like this, keep a record open through the second reading, or?
Well, I think that if anyone wishes to comment on the proposed fee increase that's included in the ordinance, as has been your custom, we've been leaving the record open. I believe in the case of the ordinance that's on the agenda, we're leaving the record open until September 5th. So if anyone has any comments on the proposed fees, they can certainly submit it in writing.
That'd be good. But it doesn't appear like we've got interest in comments this evening. With that, nothing to actually close, I guess. Close public comments? If so, done. Then moving ahead to ordinance number 2013-11, and this is the second reading.
Your Honor, this is the second reading of an ordinance amending the Lincoln City Municipal Code Title 12, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places, Chapter 12.18, Exclusion and Criminal Trespass, Public Places, amending Section 12-18-070, Enforcement and Exclusion, relating to increasing the exclusion period for specified offenses.
Reminding council, this was, as you've read the revised ordinance, or it changes the offenses.
Your Honor, it adds, the exclusion period in the ordinance is 30 days. It adds an exclusion period for misdemeanor offenses makes the initial exclusion 90 days, and if the offense is a felony or a sex offense under state law, the exclusion is for 180 days. It's all still subject to the appeal process. I did get something wrong at the last meeting when I think there was a question of, is there an appeal? There is an appeal under the ordinance. The appeal goes to the municipal court judge. However, the city manager, who I incorrectly stated, here's the appeal, actually has the ability to waive or reduce an exclusion outside of the appeal process.
Great. Okay. Any questions, discussion? This is, again, is second reading, and we talked about it last meeting as we were doing the first reading.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 2013-11, an ordinance amending the Lincoln City Municipal Code, Title 12, Streets, Sidewalks, Public Places, Chapter 12.18, Exclusions and Criminal Trespass, Public Places, amending Section 1218.070, Enforcement and Exclusion, relating to the increasing the exclusion period for specified offenses.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of ordinance 2013-11. Roll call, please.
Eggleton,
Yes.
Ellingson,
Yes.
Norikis,
Yes.
Sprague,
Yes.
Quant,
Yes.
and Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Then we have another ordinance for first reading, ordinance number 2013-13.
Yes, Your Honor. The electronic packet had a mistake. It had it at 2013-15, and apologize for that. We have a couple other ordinances in the works, and this one kind of skipped over those. So this is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Lincoln City Municipal Code, Title 15, Buildings and Construction, Chapter 15.12, Moving Buildings, relating to clarification of exemptions and updating processing fees, performance bond coverage, and penalties. In summary, the ordinance essentially clarifies that if you have a trip permit issued by, it's supposed to be issued by the county, but it can be issued by the state, and you're moving through the city, you don't need a city moving permit. If you're placing a building in the city, you do need a moving permit. The processing fees are updated as previously stated. The performance bond, essentially the existing language requires bonding of only the obtaining of a certificate of occupancy within 6 months of issuing of the permit. Your staff felt that wasn't sufficient, that what we needed to do was bond for any damage to public or private property that may occur through the route that they select. And the bond amount is listed in the existing ordinance as $5,000. We kind of left the bond amount to be determined not to be less than $7,500, and it would be determined based upon the route you choose. So if you're going to move a building past 15 traffic lights that you could knock over, that would probably require much more of a bond than if you decided to take an alternative route that didn't place public facilities in jeopardy. And the other thing we did was to, as we did with other ordinances, kind of standardize the penalty to, again, make it a Class B. Unless there's damage to city facilities, then it makes it a Class A with an express requirement for restitution.
Any discussion or questions from council? Cut and dry. Thank you, sir. If not, then I'd entertain a motion to approve first reading and set second reading and adoption of the ordinance for September 9th, 2013. Authorize receipt of written comments in the record until September 5th, 2013 at noon.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Sprague,
Yes.
Norikis,
Yes.
Ellingson,
Yes.
Eggleton, Quant,
Yes.
and Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. City Councilor, just a question before we move on. I was intrigued by your comment on this one, 1978 ordinance, and it leads me, is this typical of how we update ordinances, is when we run across an issue, when there must have been an issue of moving a property, which gives us the opportunity to relook at all the rules and regs, and
Well,
is this how housekeeping gets done?
There's really two schools of thought here. I mean, the best way to update your code is when the legislative session ends, you look at what's changed, and you go to your code and you update things. Now, we just had to have a legislative session end, and there are some things we're going to need to be bringing back to you. In my experience, you could sit around and you can make a list. Oh, I see this as a problem. I'll make a list. I'll write it down. I'll get to it. And then 6 years later, you go, I never actually got around to doing that. So I've kind of, and this is kind of up to you, I've kind of taken the tack that if I see a problem, I'm going to get with staff, see if we can fix it. And if you don't want me to do that, you want me to write that list and come back later with a more, I mean, certainly I could come back with a more comprehensive revision later. And I think what's going to happen here is we're going to be knocking these things down, and then we'll see some opportunities for consolidation.
Okay.
But I'd rather fix it now and then do the cleanup later.
Okay.
So it's at your discretion. You can tell me what to do.
No, for now, this seems to be working. I was curious what the big picture is, and you said the right things for me. I would hope some of these could be consolidated or attached, and as you did for the appeals.
Yes.
And I'm appreciative.
I think it's always going to be, no matter how much legal resources that you've got, it's always going to be a balancing act between how much time can be spent on housekeeping versus how much time has to be spent on transactions and applications and litigation and all that. So it's a balancing act, and we're hitting some of the highlights. You've seen a fair amount of housekeeping. I guess a lot of those came about through issues that were ripe at the time, rather than just start going through the code and seeing what we ought to improve. So hopefully the frequency of those will decrease because we've solved problems. But there's plenty of legal work, I will just tell you that.
Well, we're trying to keep him busy with...
Yeah, you are.
Okay, so, thank you. With that, then, we could move to comments from the public. Last opportunity. Seeing none, how about comments from City Council? Henry?
I have a comment.
Please.
I'd like to wish everybody a happy Labor Day, and let everybody know there was a great white shark, small great white shark found at Rose End this afternoon. So if you plan to go surfing, be well aware. I'm sure if anybody asks David Price, he's got a picture of it, and probably the newspapers will pick it up too. So be careful going in the water. Have a safe weekend.
Okay. Gordy?
No comment.
No comments tonight. Councilor Sprague?
I have a couple. One is, Henry, what's the date of closing Henry's Donuts?
Labor Day.
So get to Henry's Donuts and clean him out. I think he'd probably like that. My other comment is, on the 19th of September, or over that period of time, 18th through the 20th or 21st, we will have the Vietnam Wall here, the traveling Vietnam Wall again. We've had it here twice before. One of the things that is kind of interesting or neat about it is that they have a silent sentry there 24 hours a day. The sentry doesn't have to do anything but just stand there. I know that there are some spots still open for a silent sentry, so that if there's anyone who would like to sign up and do an hour, it's only an hour at a pop. Call Roger Robertson at Always Traveling. He has the list, and he would welcome your volunteering.
Thank you. Councilor Gary?
I would just like to thank Chinook Winds for this last weekend having the Surf City event, and they've done that yearly now for quite some number of years, and among other things, it's a way for one local club in particular to earn some additional money, and I don't know what the final count on the number of cars being displayed. It seemed to me there were fewer this year than last year, but as in the last couple of years there was some rain, and that might have caused people some concern. But it was a beautiful weekend. It was a perfect weekend for displaying cars. So I'd like to put that out there. So if they decide to do it next year, they can maybe get a little more, more people wanting to come down. But that's a lot of effort for them to do that, and it brings a lot of business to town. Right. So I just want them to know how much we appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman Norikis.
Yeah, I'd like to extend a thank you to Chinook Winds Casino as well for doing a very nice job of hosting the Oregon Coastal Caucus conference that was held in town last week. I attended part of that and appreciate their efforts.
Good point. The economic summit that was held at the casino, you're right. I have a couple of things. One, reminding the public to always check in with the LincolnCity.org website and look at committees, volunteer opportunities. We had a nice display this evening of how the volunteers make the library, and certainly volunteers serving on city committees makes this community much better. Reminding council that we're having dinner with the Sletz Tribal Council this Wednesday night, and then also on Friday, remind us all that school starts and Stuff a Bus is at Tanger Mall. If you've missed for some reason Stuff a Bus, that's school supplies for our youth in this community, and you can certainly take your school supplies to the mall and put it on the bus. And then I also have next Tuesday, not tomorrow, but the following, our Agnes Creek tour of our thinning project, and I have it showing at 3 p.m., and we'll take a tour through the thinning project at Agnes Creek.
That is a public meeting. For council members and staff, we will leave here a few minutes before 3 for anybody that wants a ride from the upper parking lot. And the location on Bard Road has been advertised. I think it's 4/10 of a mile from 101. There's a trailhead area. You'll see cars parked there for any of the public that wants to join the tour. It is a public meeting.
Good. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just one other thing to follow up on the Stuff a Bus. Not only do they want school supplies, but if you have any jackets, coats or jackets that are in very, very good shape or almost new, they can really use those as well. There are a lot of kids that just don't have a jacket, so the winter's coming up, and if you could take it down to the Stuff a Bus there at Tanger Mall, it would be well appreciated.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. With that, let's call it an evening. Thank you.